Hello, I'm Yoshiake Yano, retired Major General, Ground Self-Defense Force from Tokyo, Japan. Today, I'd like to talk about the Chinese military power, its real situation, and the influence. Although China has a long history, for more than 3,000 years, the PRC is a newly built communism country on the basis of the traditional thought and strategy of the Chinese. The PRC is now attracting the eyes of the world because of her amazing economic growth. At the same time, the more countries have become pay more attention for the negative influence on the international society. Today, I will try to make the analysis on the reality of the Chinese military power and its influence on the surrounding countries from the viewpoint of Japan. Japan, as one of the surrounding countries of China, has not only imported many various cultures and goods from China traditionally, and also waged the wars with her. Japanese viewpoint would be beneficial for other countries because of the lessons learned through the long history of the communication with China. Concerning traditional power of China, GDP and population. In the history of China, many dynamics could appear rising and experience the height of the power for about 50 years, then began falling and finally disappeared from the history. The Chinese history has experienced this type of cycles at the interval of several hundred years. In those cycles, the prosperity and the population on the continent of China changed dramatically. Over the most of the past 2,000 years, China has accounted for between 22 and 33% of world GDP. But the economic power of China sharply fell down according to the collapse of the social order. For example, in 1950, the next year of the end of the Civil War, China's share of the global GDP fell, reaching from 4 to 5%, where it stayed until 1973. The population has also been changing dramatically. In the Warring States period, 403 to 2021 BC, the total population of China had already reached to about 20 millions. In Han Dynasty, the population reached about 60 millions in 280. After that, the population fell down dramatically to 20 millions in the one generation because of the population collapse caused by the Civil War and the famine. The population of China increased in the stable and prosperous society in Han, Tang, Song, Qing dynasties, reaching about million. In the 19th century, reached about 400 millions. And China also experienced dramatic decrease of the population, reached less than 20 millions several times. Concerning the most militarized civilization and formidable than the Soviets, China has been very militarized from the ancient times because of the frequently happening civil wars, the revolutions, and the invasion by the surrounding tribes, which resulted in the population collapse. In China, there had been more than 6,000 battles in 4,000 plus years from the 26th century BC to the end of Qing dynasty. This figure was more than 1/3 of the total numbers that had happened around the world during the same period. China has had a huge amount of force. For example, Shi Huangdi, 259 to 210 BC, initial emperor in Qing dynasty, commanded about 1 million personnel. The total force of China, including all of the warring states in those days, is estimated about 5,300,000. This huge amount of the force is far outnumbered the force commanded by Caesar, reaching 20 to 30,000. China also invented and developed the revolutionary armaments like the gunpowder, the advanced crossbows, and the rockets propelled by the gunpowder. And besides, they deployed and used them in a huge amount in the battlefields. Although China has almost colonized by the lack of the military power, coping with the modernized Western countries, after the 18th century, it would be better not to forget the fact that China has historically been serious militarized civilization. The US confronted with the Soviet Union in the Cold War era. Which nation does have the greater power, the PRC or the Soviet Union? The PRC has the almost similar amount of the territory to that of the US. The Soviet Union had the 2.3 times more of that of the US. But the most important factor deciding the national strength is GDP, because it is not only the most useful indication of the economic power of the nation, but also decides the capacity to invest the construction of the military power in terms of GDP, the Soviet Union could not succeed to overwhelm the US. The best record of the Soviet Union's economy was nearly a half of the GDP of the US. According to the IMF, in 1990, China's GDP share of global economy was at 5.61%, increasing to 11.02% in 2000, 14.39% in 2005, and an estimated 15.83% in 2007. According to the International Monetary Fund in 2007 data. In 2020s, the China's GDP would become larger than that of the US if the annual economic growth of China maintained more than 7 to 9%. The population of China is about 5 times larger than that of the US. The Soviet Union had almost the same amount of the population to that of the US. In total, the Soviet Union had almost the same power as the US on the assumption of its vast territory has the same importance as GDP in the national power. Considering the importance of the GDP and the population, China would become about 5 times more powerful than the US because China will have almost the same GDP in the 2020s. On the other side, she has the 5 times larger population and the same size of the territory. China should become more formidable than the Soviet Union for the US in near future, and especially for the adjacent countries of China like Japan, Korea, and Taiwan. This concludes today's session. Thank you.